The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM and we're using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for you guys each and every week. When you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. Now, if you haven't signed up with BetMGM, use bonus code ON3, and you'll get up to $1,500 new player offer on your first wager with BetMGM, plus 50% off an annual subscription to the On3 College Sports Network. Here's how it works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses, and your code for 50% off an annual subscription to the On3 College Sports Network in your BetMGM inbox once your first bet is placed. Just make sure use bonus code ON3 when you sign up. Let's make it one for the history books. Let's make it legendary. Welcome into the Hard Count. It is Thursday, March 12th, 2026. Last one on the face of the planet. As always, presented by BetMGM. This is the show for college football fans who are mentally tough. That's right. This time of the year, it's very easy to get caught up in the how far we have to go till college football season is here. It's very easy to start having the poor me's and the, oh, it's so far away, and oh, it's only spring practice. None of that. This is for college football fans that are locked in, that are keeping the main thing, that are taking it day by day, that are locked into their respective fan site for all these spring practice intel that they can stomach. All right? This is for y'all. This is for us, I should say. Speaking of spring practice intel, little tongue twister to start the show. Got that on deck for you across college football from Texas, Ohio State, as well as Clemson, South Carolina. And I just told you, this is a show for college football fans that are staying locked in. We're going to be locked in on week one when it gets here. We're going to be locked in on the entire season. But I feel like now is a proper time for us to get together and say, hey, you know what? September is going to be awesome when it does arrive here. What are some games that we're already dialed into during the month of September? I got a bunch of them. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. And then a BetMGM QB breakdown going out to Lextington, Kentucky. All right, in the spirit of a one tournament that starts during the month of March that Kentucky usually is pretty accustomed to having success in. We don't care about college basketball on this show so much as we care about college football. So we'll break down what Kentucky's getting in a one Kenny Minchey transferring over from Notre Dame. Not a lot to go off of there, but the context, I think, with him is super intriguing. Again, BetMGM bringing y'all the show. Little odds boost token if you are into betting college basketball right now. No, I'm just saying this. I will be rolling with the Cornell Big Red against Yale this upcoming weekend. You do you, boo-boo, but I'm rolling with the Cornell Big Red. If you want to follow, be my guest. I would recommend fading me on all picks, but one way to look at it is, hey, maybe your boys do. Maybe I suck at betting college basketball, but maybe, just maybe, when it comes to a matter of the heart and the Cornell Big Red, finding their way to punch a ticket to a certain tournament that happens during the month of March, maybe, just maybe, your boy gets right, okay? So speaking of getting right, let's get right together with some spring practice intel. Let's take it out to the 40 acres, baby. Inside Texas has all the intel and then some over there. Evan Veith, Joe Cook, the entire team just churning the intel for you in real time. They got spring practice on and popping here within the last couple of days. A new individual calling the defense, and they won Will Muschamp. Now, you've probably seen Will Muschamp most recently on your timeline, whether it's him and Nick Saban in that clip with them together at LSU, just absolutely chewing the soul out of some poor individual coming to the sideline, or him pounding a whiteboard when he was a head coach. I believe it was when he was at South Carolina, potentially. Don't quote me on that. Bottom line, Will Muschamp is the new DC in Austin, and the way that they're approaching this thing with him now calling the defense is he is the head coach of the defense. You've heard him say that. You've heard Steve Sarkisian say that. And he has this persona of being what I just said, chew your guts out kind of guy, lay into you kind of guy. And that's still, I think, who he is. First spring practice, sounds like he was just sort of consistently loud. No massive crescendo moment where Will Muschamp lost his stuff on the practice field. It's the first day of spring practice. We're going to give that thing some runway. Here's what I like about this, though. With Will Muschamp now calling the defense, you get new juice. And I've said this a couple of times, but I want to say it again during this segment. I don't think you can overstate the impact of new juice when it comes to a coordinator and overseeing a certain side of the football in a meeting room. Like, just new juice, new communication. As good as Pete Kwiatkowski was, I think when things get stale, there's no way to make them fresh again. So Will Muschamp and his resume, I think, is as good as any defensive coordinator in college football. I'm excited to see how this defense looks the first couple of weeks when it comes to urgency, when it comes to temperature getting into the football, when it comes to just overall edge they play with, because I think that's who Will Muschamp is. I think that's what the Texas defense needs. Very excited to see how that translates, but through the first couple days of spring practice, sounds like it's been a positively trending as much as it can be through a first couple of practices. Now, speaking of positive trends, Cam Coleman transfer from Auburn to Texas. You already know who he is. He's the number one wide receiver in the transfer portal. I've been told he is clearly the alpha. Reason why that's important. As of right now, no Mosley, no Wingo right now during spring practice. Okay, so Cam Coleman, you are one of the older guys in the room. You're also one of the newer guys in the room. So hearing that he's the alpha means he understands what it is being there in Austin. I mean, probably right around a $2 million man out there on the 40 acres, going to be your go-to guy this year. He's acting like the go-to guy. This is also now the first time in Cam Coleman's career where we've seen him be in the position to be the unk of that position room. Right? Because at Auburn, he comes in there with fanfare. He's a true freshman, all everything. We saw him during spring ball out there at Auburn, and it was, he stuck out like a sore thumb in terms of the physical skill set he had running around there on the Plains. Sophomore year last year, he's kind of under Eric Singleton's wing. This year, though, at Texas, they're going to look to him to not just be the go-to receiver, but look to him to truly be a leader. Steve Sarkisian told this story for winter conditioning that Texas did this past season, or this past offseason, I suppose, speaking to a Friday conditioning period where they're finishing up the session with, you call it wind sprints, call it gassers, call it suicides, whatever you want to call it. Cam Coleman won every rep to finish that session. Again, a guy who's making $2 million, a guy who, with a couple of guys like Wingo and Mosley not in the mix, could probably take his foot off the gas and say, you know what, I'm going to take it easy today. I got my legs to save here for spring practice, full throttle. If a dude who's making $2 million is giving his all during a Friday conditioning session, you have no excuse if you're anyone else on this football team. Now, you saw the clips on your timeline of Cam Coleman running routes on air, looking good doing so. We know what he is from a physical skill set. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table from an intangibles perspective for this wide receiver room. Now, the offensive line, the word I was told to use for them is developmental. Okay, they have some injuries across the board here during spring ball. I don't think we'll get a great gauge for what that unit's going to be. I'm going to just use that label of developmental as a reason to give us some time and see what they are during fall camp. Now, if we're hearing they're developmental during fall camp, I'm going to start to worry. But the person that I spoke to close to Texas is saying, hey, listen, I have confidence in what that room is going to be, not just in them being good enough, but them being good. Now, to go in line with that offensive line, I was told that there's a reasonable level of confidence that Texas will align in a lot of two tight end sets this year. The whole point in doing that is to try to get the safeties of the opposing defense to have to mix it up a little bit more in the box and play the run game a little bit more heavily. It's a big reason why I went out and got Raleek Brown and Hollywood Smothers from the transfer portal, two of the best backs in the transfer portal with real P4 proven production. Okay, so they feel good about those backs so far through spring practice. But going back to what I just said, two tight end sets screams to the defense, hey, we're going to run the football. Hey, you better align for success here, defense, and try to stack the box because we have not just our 5 offensive linemen set, but 2 other big boys out here, sacrificing that for 2 receivers out here to try to move the line of scrimmage against you. So that in itself, optically, should allow for a little bit of a better picture to push the football downfield to a Cam Coleman, to a Ryan Wingo, to a Mosley, which should make for some more explosive plays, which you get excited about if you're Texas. Also, take this for what it's worth. Think wide zone will be some bread and butter for Texas this year through a few couple practices for spring ball. We'll see what happens there. I would also expect a heavy dose of inside zone to go with that RPO, but neither here nor there, just something to keep an eye on. The bottom line, Texas wants to make your safeties get active in the run game so they can hit you over the top in the pass game. Now, speaking of the pass game, Arch Manning, not full go just yet. During spring ball, he is wearing a visor. We'll see if that holds throughout spring practice. I like my quarterbacks wearing visors. I think that's kind of swaggy. There's no real salt to that. Besides, I just think it looks cool. Here's what I will say. If this is a thing we're talking about with Arch Manning going into fall camp of, yeah, he's not full go, yeah, he's a little bit gimpy, but don't worry about it. If you tell me not to worry during fall camp about Arch Manning and his injury, I'm going to be worried. I don't care what you're telling me. You know why? Because DJ Lagway is giving me PTSD from what last year was. Now, take a deep breath, JD. Everyone collectively take a deep breath. Arch Manning and his story arc, if you will, is different than what DJ Lagway's was at Florida. DJ Lagway was dinged up at different points throughout his first season at Florida. He didn't start a full year at Florida, so there's different context there, whereas Arch started the entirety of last year, okay, even with a couple of different injuries that he dealt with, one of which being a concussion. The thing that I was told was he's not in a boot outside of practice. He's not on crutches. They're just being cautious with him through the first couple of spring practices. We'll see where he is when they get back from spring break. Okay, cool. If we get to practice 4 and Arch is full go and he's running around, still rocking the visor now, then all my concerns will be alleviated. Just something to keep an eye on now. Concern level is still low, both inside and outside the building. I'm just saying Arch Manning, as of right now, not full go. Of course, he had I believe the terminology was preventative or the bottom line, he got a surgery on the lower body to try and help his recovery to get ready for spring ball and fall camp. So just keep a pulse on that. Nothing to lean too much into there just yet, but just keep a pulse on that. I'm always curious, too, whenever I talk to people around a certain program going into spring practice. Hey, what's the unquantifiable feel like on the grass? What's the vibes? What are the things that, hey, we're out there in helmets and cleats, no shoulder pads or any real popping going on just yet, but what's the feel out there? And the thing that I was told is 2 things. One, Colin Simmons is stepping into being the true leader of this defense. Because what was Colin Simmons, past couple of years? One, freak show off the edge. You had to deal with him. He was a problem for you whenever you snapped that football. We already knew that. But he's had a certain swagger about himself, a certain edge about himself, and that's all well and good. But now as he elevates into being an upperclassman, similar to Cam Coleman, he understands, hey, if we want to go further as a football team, if I want to be better as a player, I got to step up to be like the guy on this defense. Sounds like he's taking on that role. Heard stories about him helping different players that were unfamiliar with the media through their own respective media sessions with the scrum. I like that from Colin Simmons. Having been around him when he was a rising senior in high school out here in Nashville at an event for On3, dude just got the it factor. Like, he walks into a room and people gravitate to him. People pay attention to what he says. Outside of the fact that the dude's carved out of marble and is massive in general and a great football player, he has a certain quality about himself to where if he's leading everyone in the right direction, good things are going to happen for the Texas defense. And I think that's going to be the case there when you pair him with a Will Muschamp. So that's the first thing I heard. Colin Simmons is setting the temp of that defense, and I think that defense, as of right now, is going to help set the temp of that football team. Second thing I heard, though, is there is very much so a sense of urgency across the board within that building in Austin. I think sometimes us as college football fans, we worry about different rosters of, hey, do they understand the opportunity they have in front of them? Do they understand how good this roster can be? Or are they just going through the motions and saying, hey, I play at Texas, or I play at Ohio State, or I play at Indiana, and I'm just here to do my 1/11th and get paid and, get my training table, and then I'll go to class, maybe not. I was told that this team understands we got Arch Manning, we got Cam Coleman, we got Colin Simmons, we got Gooseby. We got a squad here to go do more than just win 9 games. We got Arch Manning for one more year here, y'all. There is no, let's have a good year and see what happens. There's a very clear mission. There's a very clear goal. And that goal, I would expect, if you gave them all truth serum out there in Austin, Texas, is to go win a national freaking championship. Okay, so we'll keep a pulse on that. Again, very early on in spring ball, they're going to do their 3 practices, leave for spring break, and come back and then get the pads rolling. We'll have more intel around Austin here in the future, but that's the latest so far out of Texas spring practice with them spotting the ball for the first time since the Cheez-It Citrus Bowl where they beat Michigan, neither here nor there. Now, let's move on to a team they're going to play in week 2 of this college football season. What's the latest intel out of Columbus, Ohio? All right, last year in the college football playoff, if you check the odds over at BetMGM, they were favored to win the national championship. Look at what they have on this roster. I know you lose a lot of pieces to the NFL, especially on the defensive side of the football. Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese. The thing that I heard with spring practice rolling for the starting the week on, I guess it was Tuesday, Ohio State in that linebacker room specifically, where they lost Reese and where they lost Styles, the word I was told to use to describe them is athletic. In fact, the qualifier for that, the describer of that label was super athletic. Okay, so there's no way to replace a Sonny Styles, and you saw what he did at the Combine. There's no way to replace an Arvell Reese. But with that first day of spring ball, being your football team running around with, again, no shoulder pads, no leg pads, just, jerseys and helmets, I was told it looked a lot like the NFL Combine in terms of explosivity, athleticism. Like, it's a group now that's going to get after you. Like, the thing that I was told on the first day of spring ball is, hey, I don't know if Ohio State is going to be as good as they've ever been. Doesn't mean they can't still win a national championship, but are they as good as they've ever been? We'll see. But this might be the most athletic group they've had, and the linebacker room, I think, is a pretty good indication of that. One name to keep a pulse on that maybe nationally is going to get a ton of buzz during spring, but you'll know about him because you watched the show. Christian Allegro, transfer linebacker from Wisconsin. I was told he had 2 pass breakups the first day of spring ball. They are super excited about what he brings to the table. Great player at Wisconsin. Obviously, you bring him to Ohio State. He knows what the Big Ten is, so there's no leveling up kind of transfer for him that he has to worry about. Him, paired with the rest of the guys in that room that have been biding their time from Peyton Pierce to a Riley Pettijohn. Like, I can't wait to see what that linebacker room is. Bottom line, they don't think they're going to have to take a massive step back when it comes to raw ability. Now, are you able to replace the instinctual part of the game that Styles and Reese were so great at? Remains to be seen, but they feel really good about the personnel in that linebacker room specifically. Now, if you were keeping a pulse on the socials the other day, Matt Patricia got paid, deservedly so. I keep saying this with Ohio State. It is an NFL mind calling the defense, and it is NFL players on that defense. So we'll see what happens in terms of what they are when they spot the ball against Texas in week 2 in Austin, but they feel confident in what that group is. One of the most lower key additions of the transfer portal, in addition to Christian Allegro, hey, Terry Moore is a safety from Duke who transferred to Ohio State. One reason why you don't know much about him is because he played at Duke. No knock on the Blue Devils. We all understand what it is. Not a lot of primetime games for the folks out there in Durham. But the other part of this is he was all ACC in 2024, tore his ACL in 2025. So he was out all of 2025. And then Ohio State still said, you know what, Terry, we want you on our football team because you're a really freaking good player. So I was told he might be the most underrated addition of the entire portal cycle regardless of anyone. So keep a pulse on that. You lose Caleb Downs, no way to replace Caleb Downs, but they feel really excited about what they're getting, and they won Terry Moore. Offensively, I was told the biggest thing they're focused on this spring is being more explosive as an offense. You're saying, JD, you got Jeremiah Smith. Get him the football, huh? Explosive things are going to happen with number 4 getting the rock. You're very right in that. But when you look at what the run game was last year, man, I think Bo Jackson's longest touchdown run, again, touchdown run specifically here, was like less than 20 yards. You got to be a little bit more explosive to go get to where Ohio State wants to get to at the end of the season. They understand that, and they made some additions via the transfer portal to do that. Jacoby Jackson, a guy who missed most of 2025, transferring over from Florida. In 2024, averaged 5.4 yards a carry. So pretty explosive to add to that running back room. Bo Jackson and Isaiah West, your top 2 backs in that room, are out for this spring. So that gives Jacoby Jackson a chance to get some more carries and get more familiar with this system and hopefully bide for some more time. One guy that lit up the social media world when spring practice got rolling was Legend Bay, who is a true freshman, early enrollee, rocking the number 2. I don't think you give a true freshman the number 2 if you don't think he can play a little bit. Just take the entire spring with him as a grain of salt. I think he's going to be a really good player. I would not be surprised in the slightest if he had a role this upcoming fall. But also, I don't think you should be surprised if you're an Ohio State fan. If Legend Bay lights up the spring, then you get to the fall, Bo Jackson and Isaiah West get back in the mix, and Legend Bay is less of a factor. And that's just the nature of being at Ohio State. Like, it is what it is. It's very hard to play there as a true freshman, which makes what Bo Jackson did equally as impressive. If nothing else, having another dude you feel excited about his future in that room with Legend Bay, we'll keep a pulse on what he is during the spring, but excited about what he's going to be, and we'll see what his role is in the fall. On the offensive line now, a lot of pieces back. I believe it's 4 of the 5 of the starters back from a year ago, including a 3-year starter in Hinsman at center. I was told that Ohio State had some, I want to make sure I say this the right way so I don't get anybody in trouble. I was told that Ohio State had some resources that they could have thrown around if they felt like they needed to get better on the offensive line. They take inventory over winter, and they feel good about rolling with who they have on the O-line to move into 2026 with. And I understand the Miami game makes you feel some type of way, but y'all, if you go back and watch that game, first half didn't go great. Ruben Bain and Mesidor will do that to you. But the second half, Ohio State kind of caught their tempo a little bit and actually blocked Miami semi-effectively. Now, that doesn't count for anything because you lost the game, and Ohio State fans don't care to be semi-effective in the second half. I hear all that. But if Ryan Day is saying, you know what, we could have gone and bought more offensive linemen if we wanted to, but we're good on that because of who we have in this room, I trust him. I think Ryan Day has earned at this point the right to be trusted when it comes to roster decisions around his football team. Also, I'll say this. We saw Texas a year ago have a lot of guys that had played football but not played football together, and they struggled on the offensive line. So I think the cohesion within this room, even if you don't love the personnel, if you're an Ohio State fan, I would say the cohesion within that unit should be given more credit than I think it is being given right now at a national level. On the other side of the line of scrimmage, two high-profile transfers they got were Quay Russaw and James Smith, high school teammates that went to Alabama together and transferred from Alabama together. We'll see what they are as we get further into spring, but the early thought around those two is like, how did this not work out better at Alabama? And honestly, if I'm Ohio State, it would be more concerning to have answers as to why it didn't work out at Alabama at this point during spring. Like, oh man, Quay Russaw, he can't do what he needs to do to handle his business to show up to workouts on time. Or, oh, James Smith is having trouble with his weight. Like, there's none of that. It's a lot of like, why did these guys not have more success at Bama? Why aren't they still at Bama? All right, so we'll keep, again, a pulse on those two, but they feel really excited about what they got in the transfer portal on the defensive line with both those cats. The offense in general, under Arthur Smith, I was told it'll be Ryan Day's passing game, Arthur Smith's run game. So if you're an Ohio State fan, at this point in time, with what Julian Sayin was last year, with what Jeremiah Smith has been the entirety of his career, with what the Ohio State receiving corps consistently brings to the table production-wise, I think it's safe to say I trust Ryan Day's passing concepts, okay? Can we agree on that? Is that fair to say? Arthur Smith and his run game, we actually have a breakdown on the channel already about what you're going to expect from the Ohio State offense. To put it simply, outside zone, get the defense flowing a little bit. When the defense flows too much, we hit play action. Jeremiah Smith scores a lot of touchdowns. We have a great yards per catch for number 4. Should be a lot of explosive plays downfield because of what you do in the run game. Now, you know what Julian Sayin is. There's no questioning his credentials or his chops at this point in time as one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football and definitely in the Big Ten. First day of spring practice. Don't want to put too much stock into it. But a lot of people are saying, man, I wish Julian Sayin just looked more mature. I wish he was a little bit less babyface. Maybe he heard that. Maybe he didn't. Maybe Aaron Rodgers rocked the stash for Arthur Smith and, Julian Sayin wanted to follow suit. But first day of spring ball, Julian Sayin out there with a little bit of a mustache action. Okay, it's kind of like the visor for Arch Manning. However much stock you want to put into that, more power to you. But it kind of goes in line with what we're hearing about Julian Sayin in the sense that he's sort of growing more into himself as a starting quarterback at Ohio State. That's a tough job title to be given as a redshirt freshman. Hey, man, here's the keys to the Ohio State offense, the Ohio State program. You are now one of the most important people in the state of Ohio. And more important than whoever's playing quarterback for the Browns, like as important, I would say, as Ryan Day in the head coaching role for Ohio State. You are one of the most visible figures in all of your state. And, oh, by the way, you're only your second year in college. Sounds like he's progressed more into that role and feels comfortable doing that. I don't have any questions about Julian Sayin, but if you wanted some intel on the guy at this point in time, all of it's positive. All of it's positive, and they're excited about what he's bringing to the table from a leadership perspective. A couple of freshmen to highlight here in the receiver room. Chris Henry Jr., I was told, is as advertised. Now, it's a big deal because Chris Henry Jr. advertised as one of the better wide receiver prospects in his class. I would imagine he's probably one of the better wide receiver prospects if you ask Charles Power or Cody Belair over the course of the last couple of years. You go watch the clips on social media of him at practice standing next to Jeremiah Smith. You tell me that guy's a true freshman. I don't know what he's weighing or officially measured at Ohio State. You cannot tell the difference physically between him and Jeremiah Smith when they're just standing next to each other. That is terrifying for opposing defenses. My gut says you probably can't just play man-to-man with Chris Henry Jr. If you want to do that, you're probably getting burned. So if that's the case now, if you can't body up Chris Henry Jr. with one individual, you probably got to give him extra attention or a little bit of extra shade from the safety. You can't do that because you got Jeremiah Smith. And oh, by the way, now a couple of receivers they feel excited about, to go off the freshman tangent here for a second. Devin McQuinn, transfer from UTSA, and Kyle Parker from LSU. Two dudes they brought in that are real deal burners that can stretch the field, that they brought in to be burners and to be more explosive. So you can't, take less attention on the back end away because they'll hurt you. And then on top of that, I was told that Jaquadian Guilford, who's also a Rivals 5-star receiver, along with Chris Henry Jr., I was told that he is not far behind what Chris Henry Jr. is when it comes to what winter conditioning was. Now we'll see how that progresses over the course of spring ball. Maybe one of those guys separates more from the other, but they feel like they're stocked once again to go on a run. Again, super athletic on defense. Well, I think we'll have more intel on the defense here as the pads come out. Usually how that thing goes. But my takeaway with Ohio State is it's the same song, same verse as it is every single year in Columbus. It's about winning the national championship, winning the Big Ten, beating Michigan. Anything less than doing those things is not good enough. So you can talk about how great last year was in the month of October and how Ohio State was the favorite to win the national championship. None of that matters unless you finish at the top of the mountain. And Ohio State in that building, I have to believe now, feels like they should have done that. Would like to see a little bit of a villain arc from Ohio State going into the season like we saw from them in 2024, where they ultimately did finish the trip and won the whole darn thing in Atlanta with myself and Caden Smith on hand. All right, so make sure you subscribe for all spring intel. That's the latest out of Columbus. One more school to touch on here was spring practice intel. Let's go out to Clemson, South Carolina. Weird vibes for Clemson to finish last season. Because I said actually on this show going into last year, hey, there is not a more sure thing in college football than Dabo Swinney and Clemson getting to the college football playoff, probably winning the ACC, and then making some noise in the playoff once they get to the dance. That was not the case. Not the case at all. I mean, they won 7 games during the regular season. You lose a lot of key pieces that you felt excited about. I mean, Clemson going into last year, one of the reasons why I was so sure about them is the fact that you were number 1 in returning production in all of college football. Brought back a multi-year starter in Cade Klubnik, a head coach in Dabo Swinney who's got not one but 2 national titles to his name. Not here to rehash that too much. I just want to use that to set the scene for what we're hearing out of spring practice. Offense wasn't good enough last year, so out goes Garrett Riley. In comes Chad Morris, a familiar face to Clemson fans. He called the offense there when Clemson was kind of on their build to being what Clemson is viewed as now across the college football world as a Tier 1 program. What I've heard about him is that he is more drill sergeant than what Garrett Riley was, maybe a little bit more California cool. It's not to knock Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley got the job at Clemson for a reason. He called an offense that played for a national title at TCU. But the feeling with Chad Morris is there's a different temperature he brings to a room. Someone at Clemson told this story that he walks in his first day in that meeting room in the offensive meeting, to the players at least, and says, I'm here to kick butt and chew bubblegum. And I'm all out of bubblegum. Now, I don't believe Chad Morris used the word butt, just full transparency there. That kind of tells you what he's bringing to the table here. Also heard he guzzles a good amount of Red Bull, which I like for my offensive coordinators. I like for anybody to consume a fair amount of caffeine, not endorsing it, I'm just saying. So that's kind of what you're getting from him. It is a no-nonsense, high-energy, high-intensity. I believe Dabo Swinney called him a fireball of a coach. That's who he is, dude. That's who he is, and I think that's quite frankly what Clemson needs coming off of what last year was being such a disappointment when you had a bunch of guys that were seasoned veterans. You're going to have a new starter at quarterback. I've been told there are 2 names to watch most closely in that battle. Chris Denson will factor in, I'm sure, in some respect, but the 2 names to watch are the obvious Chris Vizina, who is, I think, the favorite to be the starter, and then true freshman Tate Reynolds. I've been told that Tate Reynolds actually has won his fair share of practices. As things progress, though, the feeling is Chris Vizina and his experience just as a college football player in general is starting to play more in his favor, if you catch my drift there. The thing that I was told is they would be floored, is the words that were told to me, floored if he's not your starting quarterback at LSU. Now, I've got a Chris Vizina story I've honestly been waiting to tell and hoping I could tell if he didn't end up leaving Clemson because, let's face it, Cade Klubnik was there for a couple of years. Chris Vizina was a high-profile guy out of high school and probably could have left to other places. I want to take you back to, I guess it was 2023. Clemson is hosting Florida State. It's a noon kick. Clemson is very much so on the ropes when it comes to their college football playoff hopes. They lose a heartbreaker at home in overtime to Florida State. The game finishes. It's kind of a weird feeling in Death Valley at that point in time post-game because that essentially put Clemson's playoff hopes to sleep. That was the last year of the 14 playoff, if you remember correctly. And we're out there doing our post-game hit and doing a game reaction and talking about what this means for Clemson and how they're going to have to get up off the mat here and probably change their approach a little bit here if they want to get back to being a team that contends for the ACC championship and getting back to the playoff, which they ultimately did the following season. But everyone has emptied out of that stadium. Everyone. And it's a hot day too, bro. Like it was, if I remember correctly, like north of 90 right around kickoff time. It was a hot day, brutal loss, all those things. Probably an hour after the game finishes, you see Chris Vezina walk back onto the field with a staffer. Chris Vezina had not played a snap in this game. Chris Vezina's out there just throwing comebacks, throwing stationary routes to the staffer, but he was out there getting some work, and after the game had already finished. And I just sort of made a mental note of that. I was like, okay, does that mean anything? I don't know. But I like the cut of that guy's jib for that to be what he does after his team suffers a heartbreaking loss. He didn't play a snap. Clemson's playoff hopes are at that point dashed, and he says, you know what, I want to get some more work in. What does it mean? Again, I don't know, but I like that about Chris Vezina, and ever since that moment, have rooted for the guy since kind of knowing what he's about. Mentioned the approach for Clemson having to change. Whether it was by necessity or by desire, Clemson has gone to the transfer portal and taken the largest portal class of their entire time under Dabo Swinney with 10 transfers. The feeling internally is that many transfers entering into the program is a bit of a wake-up call for the guys on that roster, which I think it should be. Like, I think your thought before this past season was, hey, Dabo's not going to take someone over me as a transfer. Therefore, my job is pretty safe if I do the right things and can win the job in-house. I just got to be the best guy on this roster, and if I can win the job, great, then I'm good to go. That's not a bad way to go about it 10 years ago, but in modern college football, if you're not seeking the best that the portal has to offer, then you got a problem. And so adding in some different juice to this roster, I think, has upped the level of urgency for guys that were already on this roster, which I think is the exact kind of environment you want to have for your football team. Like, that's also another reason why I didn't really understand the old way of doing things for Dabo and company. It was like, if you're not going to go out and get, again, the best the portal has to offer, not only are you passing up on improving your roster, but you're also passing up on improving what your practices look like. Like, how often do we talk about what Georgia's practices are and the fact they got a couple of 5-stars that are in there 2 and 3 deep that are pushing the guys behind them to get better? Like, iron sharpens iron. And so if nothing else, bringing in these transfers has upped the, I would have to believe, level of competition behind closed doors at spring ball for Clemson. I think that's a good thing. One transfer that is shining in a big way, Chris Johnson Jr., the intel I got about him is that he is dominating during spring practice. Okay, transfer running back from SMU, averaged 7 yards a carry last season out there in Dallas. Okay, now, it's no secret, Clemson needs some help in the run game. They were abysmal, to put it nicely, over the course of the last season. The big reason why I think Clemson underachieved last year. Some is on the offensive line, some is on the running back room, but they feel really excited about what he brings to the table. Dabo Swinney pretty publicly said that when he first met Chris Johnson Jr., he said he wasn't serious about being great, and he told that him to his face. Sounds like Chris Johnson Jr. has taken that on in the proper fashion, is practicing at a high level. The thing that I was told about him is that they are going to get him the football in a lot of ways. Okay, so it's in the pass game, obviously in the run game, but they think they can move him around as a chess piece for this offense. And, it's only spring practice, so put as much stock into that as you want to. But it feels like that's kind of what's been missing from Clemson, no? Is a true, hey, circle this guy in the formation pre-snap and find out where he is because he's a home run play waiting to. Isn't that like what old Clemson's been? Think about Wayne Gallman, think about ETN, think about the big play wide receivers they've had. Like, doesn't Clemson kind of, when they're running at a national title kind of level, don't they have some of those home run hitters to make you nervous? I think all good teams in college football do, but specifically those old Clemson teams, they have that. They feel like they might have that in Chris Johnson Jr. midway through spring practice. So, again, take of that as you will. Kobe McLeod is a guy I was told to keep tabs on over the course of spring. He's a weak side linebacker for Clemson. Reason why he's even more important now than he was a couple of months ago he is taking over the spot that a one Luke Ferrelli was occupying. Now, Clemson fans and most college football fans, I think, know this story here pretty well. Luke Ferrelli transfers in from Cal to Clemson. They're excited about what he's going to be. I believe he was an all-ACC caliber player over at Cal, maybe an all-honorable mention kind of guy from the conference level at Cal. He transfers to Ole Miss with a heavy dose of drama that we won't dive too deeply into during this segment. That's not what this is for. But they are excited about Kobe McLeod and how he's going to replace, it's funny to say that, replace more or less what Luke Ferrelli was going to be for that football team. Sounds like he's having a pretty solid spring, and they're excited about what he brings to the table. So to put a bow on this thing when it comes to where spring ball is at right now for Clemson, there is a mix right now vibe-wise in Death Valley of, hey, we want to right the wrongs from last year because we all understand what last year was supposed to be. At the same exact time, though, we're grateful for the reset. Like I said, new OC, it's going to be a new quarterback, bunch of new players on this roster via the portal, got a bunch of young bucks at the receiver position getting some reps they wouldn't have gotten with injuries in that room right now. There's a feeling of like turning the page at Clemson right now from what last year was to this year. And I think with how bad the vibes were to finish last year at Clemson, I think you need that. So we'll see what they are as this thing moves along. How many times have you heard me say that throughout the course of talking about spring intel on this show? Probably a lot because that's what spring is for, keeping a pulse on it. But very much so a fluid situation at Clemson. And there's cautious optimism to see them be a team that can be competitive in the ACC again in 2026. Not calling our shot for them to win the ACC, not calling our shot for them to go be a team that makes the playoff again. But I have a very hard time personally just totally writing off Dabo Swinney. With the resume that he has, with the talent I think they still have on that roster, I wouldn't write off Clemson just yet. All right? So spring ball's rolling through there, and we'll have more intel on them when it gets to fall camp. All right? Now, fall camp's going to get here soon, but after fall camp, we got games being played. Like college football games. I know they feel far away. They're going to be here before you know it. And so November football is going to be awesome. We love November. We love October. We love every single part of the college football calendar. Understand that. But y'all, September's going to be, really the first entree we get of the college football season. And I started just looking through some of the games we're going to get in September. Y'all, I'm already jacked for some of these games, man. A couple of games you look at, Kato, you say, okay, here we go, boys. Here, and I know it's still a good bit away, but some of these matchups have got your boy salivating a little bit here, okay? So we'll break them down right now. Before we do, this is a show for college football sickos. If you don't believe me, we're talking about games that are 170-plus days away. We're sickos. You're a sicko, too, because you're watching a video about this, and it's the month of March, brother. You got March Madness around the corner, all right? So you're a sicko, too. Congratulations. If you didn't know that, this is your come to Jesus moment. We're glad to have you part of the show. Make sure you're subscribed if you haven't already, all right? So first game I'm looking at, man, week 1. Saturday is going to be great. A lot of good games. But, hey, that Sunday game, September 6th, Notre Dame versus Wisconsin in Lambeau Field, the backdrop of one of the most iconic venues in all of football, period. I don't care. It's not a college football stadium. Lambeau Field is a place where football happens. With it being a Sunday game, you're going to have a chance to kind of have the Saturday that was, digest fully, college game day in the rear view. And that Sunday, man, where you got Notre Dame having a really frisky test against Wisconsin. Say, JD, Wisconsin going to be frisky? They could be. It's week 1. Shoot, Florida State wasn't that good last year. They were frisky enough to beat Alabama week 1. Anything can happen in week 1. Understand that. Wisconsin took 33 transfers this past cycle. In fact, Pete Nakos has a great article over at on3.com talking about some of the high-level spenders from this past portal cycle. Wisconsin wasn't like numero uno on that list, but they came up a couple of times throughout that article as being one of those surprise teams that really bolstered their roster with the transfer portal. We'll see. But Colton Joseph transferring in from Old Dominion, guy who's got some shake and bake to his game, dual threat kind of guy. I don't know. We'll see. So, again, Wisconsin, I think, is frisky, neutral site. It's neutral enough with it being in the state of Wisconsin. The reason why this game has me super juiced, besides it being week 1 and it being a fun brand matchup, Notre Dame over the course of Marcus Freeman's career they've kind of struggled with frisky. They've kind of lost games they're not supposed to up until last season.
Like, the games that Marcus Freeman has lost have been weird ones, like Northern Illinois, the year they played for a national title, Marshall, Louisville, at Louisville on a nighttime game. I'm curious to see how they respond, because if Notre Dame is going to go play for a national championship, as a lot of people have them penciled in to do right now during the month of March, you get past Wisconsin. Not just you get past Wisconsin, you handle Wisconsin. Like, you make Wisconsin rue the day they ever walked out there on Lambeau Field and thought they had a chance against you, Notre Dame. So do we see Notre Dame come with that kind of energy and that kind of business-like approach here going into yet another year under Marcus Freeman? I would like to see that if I'm going to go ahead and say Notre Dame's got national championship chops, because the roster, I think, is national title caliber. You lose Price, you lose Love. I'm not super excited about that, but I think everywhere else across the roster, Notre Dame is going to do rated R stuff to everyone else on their schedule, or they should. What it comes down to is, what do you have between the ears, Notre Dame? Where are you from an approach standpoint? Do you have any, oh, man, we lost to that frisky Wisconsin team in you? I don't know. I don't feel good picking that right now, but I think Notre Dame will be favored pretty heavily. If they're going to be a national title caliber team, you'd like to see them cover. Hey, who's counting when that game is 178 days away? All right, around the corner. Now, week 2 is week 2 is loaded, bro. Like, we are, just full transparency on this side of things, we are looking into, for myself and Cade Smith, finding ways to get on the road a little bit more this fall. Not every week probably, but get out and about a little bit. Have a couple of games right now circled that we'd like to be at. Cato, week 2 is so I don't know if we can leave the Roku Arena for that one, man. Like, it's just, there's so many good games. You got Ohio State at Texas, you got Oklahoma at Michigan. Week 2, September 12th, that Saturday, 184 days away for the sickos that were locked in. Let's start with Ohio State at Texas. This is the game, to me, of who earns the right, when this game finishes up in Austin, Texas, to breathe the easiest. Not a sigh of relief. Not, okay, now we're just a straight shot to the college football playoff, because Texas has still got their work cut out for them. Ohio State has their hardest schedule, I would venture to say, in the last decade or so. Buckeye fans, let me know in the comment section. But who earns the right when this game finishes to say, okay, we got our win. We still have a long road ahead of us, still an uphill climb, but that was a big test to pass, boys. Big one. Like, quite frankly, a year ago, if Texas wins this game, they're in the college football playoff. Now, if they beat Florida, they're also in the college football playoff, so don't misunderstand me. But I think we all understand what this game could be when it comes to both teams and their expectations of being a playoff team. This is also, I think, in some respects, if you're Arch Manning, kind of a get-back game for you. Because last year, Arch Manning made his not his first start of his career, but his first start as the guy of his career at Texas, in the shoe, big noon, Gus Johnson, Joel Klatt, all that, week 1, and didn't look good. Like, he had to get off the ropes mentally after this game a little bit, because he struggled. He's bounce passing curl routes. Looks like he's seeing ghosts out there. The game looked too quick for him. It looked sped up. It was a day at the office that I think Arch Manning is better for, but also a day that I think he'd like to forget in a lot of ways. Do we see him now with his second chance at a Matt Patricia defense, with no Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, or Arvell Reese on the other side of the football? Do we see him kind of reassert himself as like, no, y'all were right about me the first time. Y'all were right with what you were saying going into last season, is, yes, I am this dude that's going to go be a first-round draft pick. I am going to be in the mix for the Heisman. Like, I am that dude. I am who you thought I was. We'll see. Get a chance to announce yourself in a big way week 2 against Ohio State. Now, for Ohio State, other side of that coin, I think that the Ohio State defense is going to be really freaking good. I believe that. But really freaking good in September is a lot harder to do than being really freaking good in October and November. Because October and November, you kind of got your sea legs. You're gelling because more live bullets have been flying. You feel good about the checks and the calls with all the new starters you got on the field. It's going to be a pretty early filter on what this Ohio State defense is going to be. All right? Now, you'd much rather make mistakes and correct those mistakes with a win on that Sunday following this game than you would have lost. But Texas as a whole, man, they're not going to be by any stretch of the imagination a leisurely learning curve kind of game for the Ohio State defense. All right, like we talked about Cam Coleman already this segment. He will be a true problem for you on the perimeter. That Texas run game, I think, will be substantially improved from what it was a year ago. You got a guy in Arch Manning now, year 2 as a starter, year 4 in Sark's offense. Like they are going to truly test the early integrity of this Ohio State defense. So if you can get a win over Texas at their place with all those weapons I just mentioned, think about the way you walk around if you're a Texas or an Ohio State defender after beating Texas. A little McGregor strut to you, kind of feeling some way about yourself. I would, if I'm an Ohio State fan, just purely from a mental side of things, a confidence side of things, you'd be surprised how far that can carry you. I would love to check that box for our defense now. You know what the offense is. The defense, that second game of the season, your first real test, September 12th on the 40. Now, Oklahoma at Michigan, in that same breath, might just be a college football playoff game in week 2. JD, it's week 2. Are you sure Michigan has the juice like that? Oklahoma, yeah, they made the playoff last year, but they kind of, gritted their teeth and found their way in. I'm just saying, if Michigan won that game a year ago, they would have been in the college football playoff. Oklahoma, you could argue they were in that position to be in the college football playoff because they beat Michigan that second week of the season. Okay, so the stakes there are pretty enormous. I can't wait to see what John Mateer looks like, man. Can't wait, because this game a year ago in Norman, it was kind of the eye-opening moment for all of us college football fans of, oh, that's who they're going to be this year. Oh, that's the offensive juice they're bringing. Oh, John Mateer transferring from Washington State. He's not having any acclimation period here to what big-time football is at this level. And I know a lot of people are very quick to talk about, the fall off for John Mateer post-thumb injury, and I get that. That's fair. But, dude, he was letting it rip that first month of the season against Michigan and Auburn. Both Michigan and Auburn finished as top 30 defenses in all of college football. And I think the Michigan game, in some respects, kind of elevated John Mateer's confidence, kind of his, oh, I can do this kind of moment for him. Do we see that be the jumpstart to Oklahoma's season in this spot, going to the big house this year, the way it kind of jumpstarted their season a year ago? In addition to that, you want to see the Oklahoma run game look better, which you'll get a good gauge for what you are as a running the football team against one of the better run defenses in all of college football. I have to believe in what Michigan's going to be here in 2026. Now, the Michigan side of this is really interesting. Does year 2 Bryce Underwood, in a new system with Jason Beck coming with Kyle Whittingham from Utah, do we see the level of juice that we thought we would see with him when he flipped from LSU and chose Michigan and entered into the year as a starter as a true freshman? Do we see the returns on that here in this spot? And I don't mean to be a broken record. I just know a lot of y'all are, let's call a spade here, finding this show during the offseason, and we love you and appreciate you for that. I have been heavy on the take that I don't believe that we got to see Bryce Underwood play his brand of ball last year. Some of that is he's figuring out how to play college football as a true freshman, which is one part of this. The other part of this is you had a certain blueprint in place that Sharon Moore thought would work when it comes to being like the smash mouth football team and controlled line of scrimmage football team, and not really factoring in that you had a borderline bionicle at quarterback in Bryce Underwood with a rocket for an arm. We'll see. But I think Jason Beck and his experience with different kinds of quarterbacks, different skill sets rather, I think that's going to cater to him having a much improved year and a big jump in year 2. So, again, going back to the point of this whole thing, the winner of this game sets themselves up to potentially now start talking more seriously about making the college football playoff. Yeah, it's week 2. Yeah, it's early. But, I mean, if you look back to what last year was, like I already mentioned, the loser of that game could point to that game as being the reason why they didn't make the playoff in a pretty real way. Okay, so can't wait for that one. That one's going to be awesome in week 2. Again, both those games, 184 days away. I can't wait. Now, week 3, this might be my early candidate for like game of the year. 191 days away, September 19th, LSU, Ole Miss, in the Toxic Bowl. Like, let's take a second here. Why do we love college football more than every other sport in existence? And I love the NFL. NFL is great. You could argue the quality of products at the NFL level is better. But we love college football because of what? The emotional component. Because of the what it means to me component. Because of the pride. The pettiness, the toxicity, all those things. The fact that I hate your team as much as I love my team. And so therefore, this Saturday means everything and then some to me. That is bottled up in a 4-quarter stretch in LSU and Ole Miss. With it being in Oxford, too. Lane Kiffin's return back to the Grove. Are you kidding me? and we get Trinidad Chambliss, knock on wood here, as a starting quarterback against his old coach with a portal pieced together LSU team, like think about what's going to be said here when the dust settles on this one. If you're Ole Miss and you win this game against your old coach, who you feel like quit on you last year, you feel like he left you for the next door neighbor, you can beat him. Talk about flexing on your ex, dude. Like, talk about the level of energy there will be on social media for Lane. I mean, Lane Kiffin is awesome on social media. Hey, I might take a break from that if we're going to go ahead and lose to Ole Miss in week 3 of the college football season, because they will be after your head, Lane Kiffin. It'll be a whole lot of not nice in the mentions there. Okay? The emotional energy they will have to give to that, them being the Ole Miss fan base, will be immense. And y'all, I don't blame you for it. Because the thought with Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss and going to LSU is like, hey, there's just more for me here to win with at a higher level. And then if you turn around that season after you left that team, and the team that you left goes out and beats your new team, like, again, just the amount of energy you would have to give if you're an Ole Miss fan to Lane Kiffin that day, talk about having time, oh my gosh. That in itself will be a storyline. Now, on the flip side, if LSU walks into Oxford, Mississippi and gets a win, every reason why myself and Lane Kiffin and anyone that was in support of him leaving to LSU had for him taking the LSU job of what we just said, resources, brand power, all those things, and you go beat a team that made the playoff a year ago at their place, week 3, and you beat them with a roster that was, let's call it spade. The team last year for Ole Miss, or for LSU rather, was disappointing in a big way with what they were supposed to be, quite frankly. But you go retool them via the transfer portal with a new quarterback and the same staff from what you had last year, and in all of 15 minutes' time, go beat a college football playoff team at their place. It would kind of be a mic drop moment, I think, of sorts for Lane Kiffin of like, that's why I left. I didn't want to leave during the college football playoff run, that is. I have to believe Lane Kiffin's saying here. He said in not so many words. But it's kind of this feeling of like, okay, I wasn't crazy for believing that this was a place that I could fly higher at. In week 3 of the college football season, over 40 individuals via the transfer portal, and you go beat a team from last year that made the playoff at their place that you built, quite frankly, I was right, would be the feel if you're Lane Kiffin leaving LSU. Now, a sneaky one that's going to kind of fly under the radar, I think, until this week arrives. Florida at Auburn is also week 3. 191 days away. Two first-year head coaches at their respective places, and Alex Golesh at Auburn, hosting John Summerall and the Florida Gators. Hey, if Auburn beats Baylor to start the year in Atlanta, I think we're going to see these two teams play at 3-0. And so there's a world now where, yeah, LSU Ole Miss has got the best storylines, and it'll probably be College game day, but don't be shocked now if undefeated Florida and undefeated Auburn kind of does a little Uno reverse card on the boys and ends up stealing game day. I don't know. To me, this is just kind of a test of who's going to be the party crasher in the SEC, because both will have their fair share of opportunities to ruin somebody's college football playoff chances. But if Florida can go into Jordan-Hare and beat a team in Byron Brown and Alex Golesh's system with a lot of guys from USF over there, that's kind of more or less, I would venture to say, a little bit further along with having a quarterback that they're familiar with. If you can go get a win against them in that place, that will give a lot of life to what we've said about Florida, with them being kind of this team that just sucks to play, and a team that wins in the margins, and a team that, quite frankly, wins on Saturdays in the crucial moments that you didn't win in a year ago, which is why you have a new head coach. Same thing can be said for Auburn. Like Auburn, I think they were like 0-6, I think, in one-score games a year ago. Alex Golesh is here to fix that. So going to come down to who's further along in the margins, who's further along at a roster cohesion level in this game. So I can't wait for this one. Kind of a sneakier one, but just Golesh versus Summerall, kind of a chart-setting game for us, for the new coaches in the SEC. I'm excited to watch that one. Again, 191 days away from week 3. Just who's counting? Now, week 4, Saturday slate is awesome. I think Georgia, Oklahoma is either week 3 or week 4. Don't quote me on that. Like, we're stacked in week 3 and week 4. But, y'all, to get week 4 started, the Sickos got a good one on Friday night. Clemson goes to the Calgoritham to play Jaron Kiave Sagapulatelli. All right, now think about it this way. What if we get back against the wall Clemson, making that however many hour flight out to Cal Berkeley? Things could get kind of interesting. Let's look at it this way. Clemson's going to open with LSU. After they play Cal, should they lose to LSU, and should they lose to Cal, still got to play Miami, Virginia Tech, got to go to Florida State. We'll see what they are. Georgia Tech, South Carolina. Like, it's not going to be a cakewalk at all for Clemson. So, like, you can't afford to lose this game to Cal and feel good about your season. Not just because it's Cal and it's the first-year head coach, Tosh Lupoi, but because of what you have to do after this game. So this is going to be a big one in a lot of ways for Clemson, just from a pure trajectory standpoint. And for Cal, man, like Tosh Lupoi, first year in the saddle, he's a guy that lives and breathes Cal football, played at Cal with Marshawn Lynch. I think you got the quarterback advantage in this game with Sagapulatelli. Probably have a quarterback advantage in every game you play in the ACC, outside of should you find yourself playing Miami at any point in time. You got a chance to, I think, be a college football playoff party crasher if you're Cal, and you can announce yourself on a Friday night with the entire college football world watching against a team in Clemson that, say what you want about what they didn't do last year, is still a logo that demands some attention in our sport, to put it mildly. So that's one that I can't wait for, just purely from the implications perspective of what we get from that game. All right, so the Sickos are fired up for a Friday night in Week 4, September 25th, 197 days away. Clemson going to Cal, and that one smells funny to me, dude. Just smells very, very funny. The same way that Virginia and Florida State smelled funny to me a year ago, with like circling Virginia and them being frisky at home on a Friday night. Same feeling I have about Cal with Clemson coming to their place. All right, chance to make a statement. Should be a lot of fun, man. But dude, September's, I know it's March. I get that. I understand there's a college basketball tournament happening here soon, but dude, spring ball's here. It's hard to not get a little bit jazzed up about some of those games that are, depending on how big the corner you want to talk about is, it's around the corner. It's a big corner, but it's around the corner nonetheless. Now, speaking of college basketball, again, BetMGM bringing you all the show. There is no better place to be during March matchups than Las Vegas, baby. Also, home of the college football national title game this coming year, so we'll be there. This year, college basketball fans can win a VIP trip to the Court of Legends event. Simply place sports bets, and your position on the leaderboard will determine if you win one of the 25 grand prize packages. Just sign in to your BetMGM account, opt into the promo, then start placing sports bets of at least $10 to climb the leaderboard. Make this March one to remember. Join the Court of Legends leaderboard and make it legendary. Now, Kentucky is looking to have a legendary year, first year under Will Stein. And we got a BetMGM breakdown for you on the quarterback who's going to be QB1 for you, your first year in Lexington for Will Stein. What do we expect to get from Kenny Minchey? We'll break it down right now. If you're a college football sicko, if you're a Kentucky Wildcat fan, I don't know. There's a lot of other content breaking down your new starting quarterback in Kenny Minchey. So I would recommend you subscribing. This will not be the last time we talk about y'all's Wildcats, especially if y'all do numbers and subscribe to the channel from this video. We will take that feedback and respond accordingly. So make sure you're subscribed right here. Kenny Minchey, 6'2", 204, transferring over from Notre Dame. He's an interesting study because there's not a lot to go off of with him from in-game action. Career-wise, he's thrown 29 passes. Now, last year at Notre Dame, a lot of it in garbage time, but threw 26 passes, 20 of 26. Okay, so pretty accurate. I think he has this reputation among like casual college football fans of being this freakish athlete who's great running the football and you just, call design quarterback run game for him. He's a good athlete. If your definition of freakish athlete is throwing down backflips, then yeah, that would qualify because he did that during the spring game last year for Notre Dame. He is, I think, a lot more of a athlete to create, to throw the football, than he is this let me go and just take over the game with my legs kind of guy. Like in high school, he was like a 4.7 guy, which, assuming that college strength training was kind to him, he's probably close to a 4.6 guy now. My non-QB comp for him, though, is a Cadillac. Okay, now there's a story behind that. When I was playing college football at Cornell, there was a freshman running back that was in the meeting room with us during fall camp by the name of Devin Brewer. And Devin Brewer, God bless him, had just shown up to campus, getting his first taste of college football, still learning how to practice. And we're going through the tape from that practice. It was one of our first practices of fall camp. And Devin's got a rep that he's running through. And our coach at the time, Chad Nice, shout out Chad Nice, running back coach, is highlighting a rep from Devin. He's like, Devin, don't look like you're going full speed here, brother. Like, this is college football. I need you to really put the pedal to the metal here and show me some acceleration. And Devin just sits back. He goes, Coach, I am running full speed. Been told that my whole life. I'm just smooth like a Cadillac. And so watching Kenny Minchey play, I couldn't help but feel that way about his game. He doesn't look like he's ever trying all that hard, but he has such good instincts and such good athleticism within the pocket and as a guy who creates to throw the football to where he may not be looking like he's trying super hard to evade pressure or to make something happen with his legs, but you're watching the defenders chasing him and he's eating up their angles or they're having a hard time catching him. Again, head staying really quiet on top of the shoulders, not a bunch of pumping his arms super tough and looking like he's got the Max Duggan closed fist kind of running style. Like he's just sort of out there levitating, floating, gliding, if you will, and defenders are having a hard time getting their paws on him. Again, limited sample size, a lot of it in garbage time, but what you saw from Kenny Minchey last year, dude's just really smooth. So we'll talk more about the actual skill set for him in a second. But with there being not a lot to go off of with Kenny Minchey right now, took a step back and said, okay, what do we know about this guy? What's the context around Kenny Minchey? The first piece of context is that he actually legitimately pushed C.J. Carr in that quarterback battle a year ago in South Bend. Like, I was so confident in Kenny Minchey and what he was doing during fall camp last year to say, like, hey, I think he's actually going to win the job, y'all. And it wasn't just me going out on a limb and having some hot take to, get clicks on the internet. We're not paid through clicks, contrary to what some people believe. But, yeah, like the intel was, hey, listen, Kenny Minchey's actually having a better spring and borderline fall than C.J. Carr at this point. He's legitimately pushing him. So even though he didn't win the job, and that assessment of him, being predicted to win the job for your boy's account ended up being wrong, the fact that he pushed C.J. Carr so much, and C.J. Carr ended up having the year he had, and C.J. Carr right now at least is predicted to be the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, that should be taken account of. It's not like Kenny Minchey went out there and didn't win the job, and then C.J. Carr went out there and sucked. Like, lost to a quarterback that is viewed as the top 10 guy in the sport going into next year by a lot of people. Okay, so that in itself should be a piece of context we account for. Second piece of context here for me, I think, is actually more important. Kenny Minchey at one point in time was committed to Nebraska. Okay? He then flips his commitment from Nebraska to Kentucky. Why did he do that? Well, Will Stein, the new head coach at Kentucky, made a pretty strong push to get Kenny Minchey in the boat, handpicked him to be his starting quarterback. Okay? So, you look at who Will Stein has coached. Will Stein knows what he's looking at. As the OC at Oregon, he coached Bo Nix, Heisman finalist, coached Dylan Gabriel, Heisman finalist, and coached Dante Moore last year, who might be better than both of those dudes and could be the number one overall pick in next year's draft. We'll see what happens. But you see what I'm saying here? Will Stein isn't just taking a shot in the dark and saying, Kenny Minchey could throw it on a backflip. Kenny Minchey comes with good regards from Marcus Freeman. I like the way he handled himself when he found out he wasn't going to be the starting quarterback in that Peacock series that they had going on, and they documented that whole thing. Like he legitimately likes Kenny Minchey's skill set, and more importantly, he thinks Kenny Minchey's skill set fits well within his system. So if Will Stein is saying, that's my guy, I'm going to trust him. Going back to what I said, very little to go off of. The thing that we heard about Kenny Minchey during fall and spring practice in South Bend last year was he just is kind of floating through this competition. And that's not in a negative sense. Like, genuinely, what I said before of the perception of what he is doing versus the effort it takes for him, very natural as a football player. With the sample size being so limited, I want to highlight a couple of plays that I saw from him last year at Notre Dame. There's two that stuck out to me. One was a 4th down and 3 against Syracuse. Again, garbage time. They're blowing the doors off Syracuse, as you should if you're Notre Dame, and Syracuse is Syracuse. But it's 4th and 3. They have a play-action play dialed up. Running back goes the wrong way. So if a running back goes the wrong way on play action, guess what happens? You run into each other. Takes bad steps, runs into Kenny Minchey. And if Kenny Minchey didn't have a certain presence about himself or different poise about himself, that could be the panic button mode. Like, your brain's not telling you, hey, we're up by 60 against Syracuse, no problem. Your brain is telling you, shoot, it's 4th and 3. I'm in the game now. It's my chance to kind of make a statement for myself and kind of make a name for myself of some sorts and have something good to feel about myself on this plane flight back to South Bend. You can very easily go into fight or flight mode in that moment. Kenny Minchey bumps into the running back, collects himself, throws a casual check down to his tight end in the flat, first down, keep the chains moving. Again, not a play that makes Sports Center, not a play that Kenny Minchey is going to look back on and say that defined my career, but just it told me a lot about, again, the poise this guy plays with, I think is really, really noteworthy going into what he's going to have to deal with next year in the SEC. Another play that stood out to me. It's like second and medium against Navy. And again, you're blowing the doors off of Navy. There's a reason Kenny Minchey's in the game. I understand that. But the tackle to Kenny Minchey's blind side loses his leverage inside. So the Navy defensive lineman is able to get up underneath, have a good line of direction essentially to Kenny Minchey in the pocket. Kenny Minchey, subtle move, spins out of it, eyes downfield. It's a snowy game. Throws a strike downfield to pick up a first down. Looked like it was about a 10 to 15-yard pass. Not a crazy play skill set-wise. Not a play that's going to, win Kenny Minchey the job at Kentucky over the course of the next, couple of practices. I think he's probably going to be the guy for you. I think that goes without saying. But just plays like that where you say, okay, this guy is playing at a certain pace that you see guys that have started multiple years of college football play. Like first-year starters or guys that haven't started games in general, like Kenny Minchey hasn't, you see them get into those moments and have a certain sense of sped up, quick feet, jittery, what do I do? That wasn't Kenny Minchey. So we'll see how that translates at Kentucky. But those plays to me stood out with what he's bringing to the table there out there for the Wildcats. Also, just food for thought here. I think he throws pretty well in the run. We'll see how much they involve that into this offensive attack under Will Stein. I gave you my non-QB comp for Kenny Minchey. I want to give you a QB comp, who I think he could be. In a vacuum, I think Kenny Minchey can do in the system for Will Stein what Dillon Gabriel can do. Not the biggest guy in the world, good enough athlete to create with his legs, to be a guy you can call design quarterback run with. I think he's right-handed Dillon Gabriel, man. Like if your offense has got real deal problems and you can't block and you don't have great receivers, then like Kenny Minchey's not going to probably take over the game for you, much like Dillon Gabriel wasn't going to take over the game for you. But if you have the right pieces around him, and you have the system in place to give him answers pre-snap, which Will Stein's system will do, Kenny Minchey is more than good enough to press the right buttons within the system, much like Dillon Gabriel was. Like there's a reason why Dillon Gabriel was super efficient in Will Stein's system, was because he processed really well before the snap, could make all the throws in the intermediate game, didn't miss a lot of layups, and then created well with his legs when he had to. I think that's Kenny Minchey in a vacuum. So does he play to that caliber? We'll see. Dillon Gabriel had played a lot of college football by the time he got to Will Stein's system, which I think played in his favor. But again, Kenny Minchey is a guy that plays college football, again, at a pace at which you expect someone who has started multiple years to play at. Does that hold true in the SEC? Remains to be seen. But I like Kenny Minchey a lot and what he brings to the table for Kentucky. I think Will Stein picking him and flipping him from Nebraska should be all the validation you need if you're a Kentucky fan to have some cautious optimism going into 2026. All right? So, good show, man. Good show. I think we went a little over an hour, month of March, with a big basketball tournament coming up next week. We'll take that. Take that every single day of the week, all right? We talk college football every single day of the week. So, again, make sure you are subscribed. If you're a college football sicko, psychopath, and need help, we're here for you. We're here for you. College football year-round. Cato on the ones and the twos. Myself, JD PicKell. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all. We will keep this party rolling. We will see y'all.